I've been with search and rescue in Oregon for nearly 11 years. Most of my job is exactly what people imagine. Hauling dehydrated hikers out of gullies, locating lost kids who followed their dog too far into the trees, calming down people who didn't realize how fast the mountain weather turns. And yeah, it's usually explainable. People get scared, they panic, and they make mistakes. But there's one call I got that still keeps me up some nights. Not because it was the hardest, but because even now, I don't know what we found, or if we found anything at all. It started with a report from a father and daughter, both experienced campers. They were hiking near a stretch of forest we call Dead Ridge, though that's not its official name. It's about 60 miles from the nearest ranger station, and nobody lives anywhere near it. The trees are denser there, darker. It's not even mapped clearly. Old growth. No marked trails. Most of us avoid it unless we have to. Anyway, the man, Ben Taylor, called in around 8:30 p.m. Said his 17-year-old daughter, Marissa, had wandered off while setting up their site and hadn't come back. He'd gone looking for her, but the sun was dropping, and the terrain was rough. I was on call, so I grabbed my gear and drove the 2 hours to meet up with the local deputy and Ben at a trailhead. We set out around 1 a.m. By sunrise, more responders had arrived. Dogs, drones, thermal cams, you name it. The area we were searching wasn't that big. Maybe 2 square miles. We expected to find her curled up under a tree or stuck in a ravine. We didn't expect nothing. No prints, no scraps of clothing, no broken twigs or disturbed leaves. It was like she'd just vanished. The dogs? They acted strange. Not scared exactly, but hesitant. They'd sniff the ground, whine, then sit down and refuse to move. One of them even tried backing out of its harness. By nightfall of day 1, we hadn't found a thing. And I had this feeling, subtle, like background noise, that something was wrong. Not, we're not searching the right spot wrong, but like we were intruding. Like the trees didn't want us there. We camped out there that night. The team split across 2 zones with walkie contact. The forest was dead silent after midnight. I've been in quiet woods before. Early mornings, heavy snow, late autumn. But this was different. Even the usual hum of bugs or night birds was just absent, like the forest was holding its breath. At around 3 a.m., I woke up suddenly. No sound, no dream, just this intense jolt like I was being watched. I unzipped my tent and scanned the trees with my flashlight. Nothing moved, but my skin was buzzing like static electricity. I chalked it up to nerves and lay back down, but I didn't sleep again. Around 9 a.m., we split up again, and I joined 2 younger volunteers to sweep a quadrant uphill from the camp. About an hour in, one of the guys, Luke, said, "Hey, you hear that?" I stopped, and at first I didn't, but then I caught it too. A faint voice, a girl's, far away. We all froze, trying to pinpoint it. Then it came again. Hello? Thin and distant, almost mechanical, like it was bouncing off the trees in a weird way. We shouted for her, moved toward the sound, radioed in backup. The closer we got, the fainter the voice became. It didn't make sense. Usually when you move toward a person yelling, their voice gets louder. But this felt like we were chasing an echo that didn't want to be caught. Eventually, we came to a small clearing I swear hadn't been there yesterday. Perfect circle, grass flattened. In the middle was a neat pile of rocks, like a cairn. On top of it, a single hiking boot. It was Marissa's. Ben confirmed it. The other boot was never found. We searched the area all afternoon. Nothing. Not even animal tracks. Just that boot and the silence. That night back at camp, someone played a recording of the voice we'd picked up on their mic. It was faint but clear. Hello? Followed by a pause. Then, so quietly you could miss it, not safe here. I stared at the fire, trying not to show the chill that went down my spine. Because I was starting to wonder if we were the ones being searched for. By the 3rd day, Some of the team wanted to pull back. Officially, they cited exhaustion, shifting resources, probability of survival, the usual bureaucratic rundown. But I could tell. People were unnerved. Some refused to go back into the section of forest near the cairn. Even the dogs wouldn't go near it. Ben, though, he wouldn't stop. He'd barely eaten or slept. He just kept walking, calling her name, his voice cracking more each hour. Around 5 p.m., I volunteered to check an area north of the clearing. Steep incline, thick pines. I needed to feel useful, to quiet the nagging weight that something was watching us, waiting for us to leave. Halfway up the hill, I came across a strange line of stones. Flat rocks laid end to end like a border. It curved through the trees in a perfect arc. No moss on the stones, even though everything else was damp and decaying. They were untouched, like they didn't belong to the forest. I stepped over them. Immediately the air changed, heavier, still but in a way that pressed down on you. My ears rang like pressure on a plane. I took another step, and I swear, I heard something breathe, not from behind me, all around. Then I heard her, Marissa, clearer than before. Dad? Not a scream, a statement. I spun around, nothing there. Help came next, to my left. I moved fast, crashing through brush, yelling her name, swearing under my breath. I ran until I reached another clearing, and stopped. There was no boot this time, just my own footprints in a circle. My prints, over and over, like I'd been walking in that spot for a while. I don't know how long I stood there. Eventually, the radio crackled. Ben had collapsed. I turned back, found the stone arc again, and stepped back over it. Instantly, the air lifted. Birds chirped in the distance, like it never happened. We never found Marissa. Eventually, the case was closed. The family moved. Ben doesn't return my calls anymore. I go back sometimes. I stop at that same ridge. I never cross the stones. But sometimes I hear it, soft and high and far away. Her voice. Not safe here. I've worked the night shift in law enforcement for a while now, close to 12 years. You get used to the rhythm of the dark hours. Fewer people, slower pace, more time to think. Most calls are either drunks, noise complaints, or the occasional domestic dispute. But every now and then, a call drags you into something that doesn't line up with reality. This was one of those nights. It started quiet. Too quiet. That kind of stillness where even the usual static on the radio feels louder. Around 2:40 a.m., I got a dispatch about a noise complaint coming from a house on Norfield Lane. The thing was, I'd driven that stretch dozens of times. Pretty sure most of it was vacant. I even remembered that particular house number, 611, because it had been boarded up for years. Still, protocol's protocol. I was the closest unit, so I responded. As I pulled onto Norfield, everything looked the same. Run-down streetlights, empty driveways, and that odd feeling that the houses weren't abandoned. They were just waiting. House 611 stood at the far end of the cul-de-sac, dark and leaning slightly to one side like the ground was giving up on it. I didn't see any lights on, no movement. But the front gate was open. I parked, radioed my position, and stepped out. The air was colder than I expected. I made my way up the walkway, scanning with my flashlight. The house didn't look vandalized, no broken windows or graffiti, just still. Unlived in. I knocked once. Tulsa PD? Anyone inside? Nothing. I tried the handle. Unlocked. That was weird. These old places usually had rusted deadbolts or padlocks on the outside. I stepped in. The smell hit me first. Dust, mold, and something faintly sweet, like old flowers. The kind people leave at graveyards. The living room was surprisingly clean. No garbage, no rodents, Furniture was still arranged, covered in white sheets. It almost looked like someone had stepped out mid-move and never came back. That's when I heard it. Upstairs. A slow, muffled creak, like weight shifting on old floorboards. My hand instinctively went to my holster. I called out again. "If someone's here, you need to make yourself known." No reply. But I wasn't alone in that house. I could feel it. I made my way upstairs, slow and steady, flashlight sweeping side to side. Each step groaned under my boots, like the house didn't want me up there. The hallway at the top was short, just 3 doors. One was cracked open. The other 2 were shut tight. I went to the open one first. It was a bedroom, probably once a kid's room. Blue wallpaper peeling at the corners. A small wooden bed pushed into the corner, mattress sunken and old. Nothing out of place, nothing too weird. Until I saw the dust. There wasn't any. Every other surface in that house had a layer of it. Thick, undisturbed. But not in here. The windowsill, the dresser, even the floor. It looked recently cleaned. And that's when I spotted the closet door. Closed. But there was a faint mark on the floor. A half circle of smudged dust where it had been opened recently. I stared at it for a second, heart picking up pace. Then I reached out and pulled the door open fast. Nothing. Just coats. Old jackets. A few boxes. But the sense of someone watching me didn't go away. If anything, it got stronger. I backed out and checked the second room. Empty. Just storage. But as I turned to the third door, I noticed something strange. The hallway behind me looked off. Like the shadows weren't falling right. I turned fully to check, and I swear I saw something move at the bottom of the stairs. But when I looked again, nothing. I turned back to the final door. It opened before I touched it. Just creaked open on its own, like someone had been waiting for me. The room inside was pitch dark and freezing. Not cold, freezing. I stepped in and immediately felt the air shift, heavier, thicker. My flashlight flickered once, then again. I shone it toward the far corner and froze. There was a chair, a single high-backed wooden chair facing the wall, and on the wall, hundreds of scratches, deep, uneven, like someone had clawed at the plaster with bare hands over and over. No furniture, no bed, just that chair and the wall. And then I heard whispering, not loud, just close, like someone was standing inches behind me. I spun around, flashlight swinging, but the doorway was empty. I don't remember leaving the room. I just remember being at the bottom of the stairs, my hand on my radio, but nothing coming out. The hallway light was flickering now. I swear it hadn't been before. I backed toward the front door, every instinct in me screaming that I'd made a mistake coming in alone. As I turned to leave, I saw something that made my skin crawl. The dust on the floor, all that untouched dust. It had footprints now. Mine. And someone else's. A second set, smaller than mine, barefoot, trailing behind where I had walked, following me from room to room. I didn't hesitate. I booked it outside, down the porch steps, back to the cruiser. I radioed in that the place was clear, but I needed backup to double-check. I didn't say what I saw. I couldn't put it into words that wouldn't sound crazy. While I waited, I glanced up at the second-floor window, the blue room. The curtain was pulled aside just slightly, enough for someone to peek through. I kept my eyes locked on it, half expecting a face to appear. But nothing did. Backup arrived 10 minutes later. We swept the whole house together. No signs of forced entry. No signs of anyone squatting or breaking in. Just one weird thing. That chair in the back room, it was gone. Like it had never been there. No scratches on the wall. No temperature drop. That room was just empty now. The report said it was a false call. House was still listed as abandoned. No residents. No reason for anyone to be inside. But I know what I saw. what I felt. I've been in drug houses, in gang dens, in buildings half burned to the ground. I've never felt like I did in that place on Northfield Lane. And sometimes, when I drive by it on patrol, I swear I still see movement in that second-floor window. I don't answer calls from that street anymore. Not unless someone else goes first, because that house isn't empty. Not really. I've been a patrol officer for a little over 10 years now. I've seen everything from drugged-up assaults to folks talking to ghosts in Walmart parking lots. And most of the time you can figure out what you're dealing with by the time you get to the front door. But every once in a while, there's a call that doesn't fit in any category. No violence, no blood, no crime. Just something wrong. Something you can't explain in a report. It was a Thursday night, just past midnight. Quiet shift. I'd been parked near the back of a strip mall finishing up paperwork when dispatch put out a welfare check. Woman in a cul-de-sac about 10 minutes away called to say her brother was acting off. Wouldn't elaborate over the phone, but said she was scared to be alone with him. That's not unusual. Mental health calls are a huge part of our job, and 9 times out of 10, it's someone needing help, not someone being dangerous. So I told dispatch I'd take it. The neighborhood was nothing special. Older suburb, quiet, half the houses still had their Christmas lights up even though it was mid-January. When I pulled up, I saw a woman standing in the doorway in her pajamas, arms crossed tight, barefoot on the porch despite the cold. She didn't wave me over, just waited, watching me the whole way up the walk. "You called about your brother?" I asked. She nodded, voice low. "Eric. He's in the kitchen. He won't talk. He won't even look at me." "Any history of mental illness or medication?" "No. He just got in last night. He's been gone a while, but he's never acted like this." I stepped inside and felt it right away. Not danger, not heat or cold, just this tension, like the air was packed too tight. The lights were on. The house was clean, but the silence felt wrong. "He's just standing there," she whispered. "He's been standing there for over 2 hours, just facing the sink." I rounded the corner into the kitchen, and there he was, back to me, arms at his sides, head tilted slightly toward the faucet, not moving, not blinking, just breathing. I'd done enough standoff calls to know when someone's gearing up for something. Usually there's pacing, twitching, talking to themselves. But this guy, Eric, he wasn't doing any of that. He was still, completely still. The sister stayed by the hallway, biting her nails. I moved in slow, keeping my voice calm. "Eric? You all right, man? I'm Officer Thomas. Your sister called because she's worried." He didn't react, not even a twitch. Just stood there in his hoodie and jeans, staring into the basin like there was something in the drain no one else could see. His breathing was long and deep, measured, almost mechanical. "Eric, you hear me?" I asked again, stepping a little closer. That's when I noticed something off about his hands. His fingers weren't hanging relaxed, they were tense, curled slightly inward like he was clenching something invisible. And there was dirt under his nails, a lot of it. Thick, packed in grime, like he'd been digging. That's when he spoke. Just one word, low and steady. "Wrong." I stopped cold. "What's wrong, Eric?" Still facing the sink, he replied, "It's not me." I looked back at the sister. Her face was pale. "What do you mean it's not you?" He finally moved, just his head, turned it halfway, not enough to meet my eyes, but enough that I could see his profile, and he smiled. But not like a friendly smile, not even like a creepy one. It was empty, practiced, like someone wearing a face they didn't quite understand. That's when every instinct in me flared up. "Eric, I need you to turn around and sit down so we can talk." Instead, he raised his hands. Not in surrender, just lifted them slowly, palms outward, arms rigid, elbows locked. It looked unnatural, off balance, like a puppet being moved by strings. "I didn't let it in," he whispered. The sister gasped behind me. "What didn't you let in?" That smile widened, and he turned fully toward me. His eyes looked wrong now. Not just distant, dull, like the light had gone out behind them. And there was blood on his shirt. Just a little, near the collar. Fresh, but no wound that I could see. "I think it's still in the house," he said. Then the lights flickered, and he dropped to the floor like someone had pulled the plug. I was on him in a second, checking vitals. He was breathing, pulse steady. Just unconscious, or whatever passed for unconscious in that state. I called for paramedics and backup. The sister was crying now, asking over and over what was wrong with him. I had no answer. While we waited, I took a closer look at him. His skin was clammy, his lips pale. But the part that stuck with me was the dirt. It wasn't just on his hands. It was under his shirt collar, behind his ears, even along the edge of his teeth, like he'd been buried or digging for something he wasn't supposed to find. The EMTs arrived and loaded him up, still unresponsive, still smiling faintly. The sister went with them, and I stayed behind to finish up the report. Just as I was locking up the front door, I saw something that made my chest tighten. On the floor behind the kitchen table, half hidden under the rug, there was a square of fresh dirt. Not like spilled potting soil. This was packed, moist earth, like someone had just shoveled it inside. I knelt to move the rug and found a wooden trap door. Not standard construction. Old wood. No handle. I radioed in and got clearance to wait for detectives before opening it. But I couldn't stop staring at it. That's when I heard it. From under the floorboards, a knock. Just once, but sharp, deliberate. I stood up and stepped back, heart pounding. The knocking didn't repeat, but I felt something then, like the air in the house shifted again. A new tension. The kind that tells you not to turn your back. The detectives came an hour later. They opened the door. Nothing underneath but compacted dirt and the faint smell of something metallic, maybe old blood, maybe rust. The hole was only a few feet deep. No tunnels, no remains. Eric was released from the hospital 2 weeks later. Diagnosis, stress-related fugue state. But his sister moved out. Said she never felt right in that house again. And me? I still think about the way he said it. I didn't let it in. Which means something else did. And if it didn't get in through him, maybe it's still looking for a way. If these stories sent a chill down your spine, go ahead and tap that like button and subscribe for more eerie tales. What would you do if you were caught in one of these unsettling situations? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd really love to hear what's on your mind. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.